This is John McAllister, and I'd like to welcome you to my video podcast. And today we're going to talk around the state, and it'll be my first high school female competitor. And she happens to be from Upper Sandusky, and I really have never met her. She is a tremendous athlete. Played golf, played softball, and you can see sometimes she'll tell about how they go together. But I'm really looking forward to it. Liv is a senior. She's going to go into law. I know that, eventually be a lawyer, and I'm really excited. She was finished 23rd out of 90 in the state golf tournament, and she never played golf until she was a freshman in high school. And she used her athleticism. And I think that's really huge. So if you'll sit back and enjoy my video podcast with Liv Geyer from Upper Sandusky High School. Okay, tonight my guest is Olivia Liv Geyer, who I have never met, and I've read about in the newspapers, and until just this afternoon, I didn't realize she was a very good softball pitcher. And I will tell you, Liv, right away that when I remember when softball first came around for ladies, for females, and it was awful. It's not now. One of my best coaching friends, he coached for me. He's the head coach at Eastwood. So they play really good softball. I mean, really good. Okay. Liv Geyer, how are you tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Tell me a little background. Where are you now? I mean, school and things like that.
Oh, okay. I am a senior at Upper Sandusky High School in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. It's currently my off season between golf and softball at the moment. So I have a little bit of free time, but I'm still putting the work in for both of those at the moment. So
good. How about we better hit school first? How's school going?
School is going great. I'm enjoying my senior year. My grades are good. I'm still having time I'm making balance in my schedule, especially for my senior year, to make sure I do have time for friends, especially now during my off season,
Right.
Because that's always something I've struggled with a little bit, is balancing my social life and my athletic life for sure, especially this past the beginning of the month when I was preparing for state. It seemed like I was on the golf course every minute since the minute school ended till the minute the sun set, and I never really made time for friends. And so, which is just a sacrifice you have to make sometimes, but I'm getting better about making up for that now that it's winter time, and overall I'm enjoying my senior year. It's been going great.
That's really good. Well, two of the main reasons that I invited you on is because I was intrigued, first of all, that you've only played golf for 4 years. Tell me, is that true?
I've only played golf for an actual entire 3 years.
Okay.
I'm going I started
Come back to it.
Year. So this is technically this was my 4th season.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay, good. And then I also want you to talk about the state of high school girls sports as you see it. And we'll do that later as well. But before we do that, let's talk about, do you have a major yet? Are you going to school? Do you have a major lined up? Have you planned things like that?
Yeah, I don't currently have a college I'm decided on, but I've been in communication with quite a few schools, talking about the potential for me to continue my golf career at a lot of the Division II and Division III level. But I'm planning on majoring in either or both of political science and history with the aspiration to then go to law school after.
I was going to say, it sounds like you're going to go to law school with those.
Yeah.
Well, that's really good. Well, first of all, let's talk about softball. And the first question I would hit with, how long have you played softball?
I have played softball, the sport, since I would say first grade. And I started playing very competitively, like at a travel level in fourth grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
For me, I think it's really good because it gave me like a lot of experience and a lot of time, like playing at such a high level from such a young age.
Right.
I feel like it gave me like a really good start. And by the time I got to high school, like being on varsity my freshman year, like it increased my chances a lot. And it overall just, I feel like in softball like environment and like the community of softball, like get your name known. So like teams will know who you are, and maybe even some colleges will start to know who you are just because you've been in the environment for so long, and you like meet important people and you make a bunch of friends. Like there's people who I haven't been on the same softball team with since I was like 10, 11, 12, but we still like talk and are friends to this day when we see each other.
Huge. I think to me, that's one of the benefits of travel ball and the AAU. You meet new people, new friends. Plus, for football players, they go to camps, but that really helps a lot in 7-on-7s. But that's really good. I guess my biggest concern, I'm not gonna preach because you're the guest, but I worry sometimes about parents get their kids involved so competitive so early. When you go on to not so much high school, but when you go on to college, about that sophomore year, they say, I'm done.
Definitely.
Volleyball coaches like that or players like that, I'm done. I don't want to play anymore. And I think it's a fine line, I think. And the other thing is, I don't think it's cookie cutter. I don't think it's for everybody. I mean, certain people can do it and certain people can't, but that's really nice. And I think you talked about the competitive aspect. We joked earlier about softball. When it first started, I remember scores were like 25-20, and it was slow ball, really. Now that was years ago. That's, a long time ago. But I was doing a track. I was an official at a regional track meet in Bucyrus is when I had my eyes open. They were playing, I think, regional softball. And I was watching them warm up because my goodness, they were good. The pitchers and like yourself, it's amazing. And I watched Eastwood, as I told you earlier, he coached for me. He's the head coach, and he's really, really good. He's tough, real tough, but the kids know that he knows what he's talking about. So, but softball, you're a pitcher, right?
I am.
That's good. How many pitches do you throw?
How many pitches do I throw?
I meant different pitches.
Yeah, I think 7.
Okay. Drop ball, rise ball, change up, fastball, curve ball. Ooh, I'm thinking the next one. What would that be?
I have a screwball, and then I have a slow curveball, which is a combination of my changeup and my curveball.
Okay, it's really good.
Yeah.
Do you have a personal trainer then?
I do. I do.
Okay.
That's a pretty standard thing for any, like, I can't tell you like a pitcher who pitches like seriously,
right.
Even like at a high school level, who wouldn't have like a pitching coach.
Yeah. Who do you play with travel ball?
This year I am playing for a Pride team. So
when does that start?
The fall season is just finished. So we will be doing some like winter hitting leagues, like practices in an indoor facility, and it will start up the minute high school softball ends.
One of the mothers and coaches up in Lakota, Fremont area, I had her in school, and they are in the process of finishing a building and a field right near Bettsville. and they have 4 indoor hitting cages, and it's state-of-the-art stuff. And they have an infield, and the outfield it's not a true deep outfield, but they want to practice and train there and everything. That's how far they do a great job. In fact, I visited it a couple months ago, and they have 4, and yeah, it's really unique, really good. Okay, you have softball, but let's talk about golf. Tell me how did you learn to play so fast? Now you have a softball swing. That's not a baseball swing, but it's still a softball swing. Did you have to change with a swing like that?
Yes and no. Like there's some advantages to having the softball background for sure. Like softball coaches like will joke, and like I've heard this way before I even considered golf, that like they don't want their girls golfing and things like that because it can create a lot of bad habits.
Yeah.
But also having like at least a background of like having to like just like a swing in general was nice, because like a lot of people even in golf like struggle to even make contact with the ball right away. Like
Right.
and that was something that was just like easy for me from the start. Like granted I wasn't hitting it straight, but like I was hitting the ball, which is a very like it seems easy because the ball isn't moving, but a lot of people struggle with that. And like if you just start golfing, like you know what I'm talking about. Like it's a struggle to even like get the ball moving at first.
Right.
So that was definitely helpful. But there's some like very significant differences in the swing that I had to almost like unteach myself parts of the softball swing. Like for example, your hips. Like in softball, you want like your hips to snap and then like your hands to go. And in golf, you do not want that, or you will just like pull the ball or like push it, or you like you don't want your hips to go until like your hands are finished, which is the complete opposite. And in softball, like when you're like hitting the ball, you do not want to roll your wrists, or you will just like roll over the ball and hit a ground ball. While in golf, if you don't roll your wrists, you're gonna like fade or hit it to the right. And so there's like some key things like that that makes the transition a little bit difficult when it comes time to like, oh, golf season's over, time to transition to hitting a softball that I have to work on. But overall, like they have a lot more similarities than you would think.
Right. Okay, that's really good. A little free hitting lesson there. Well, my problem with golf is I could probably go bogey, maybe par, maybe birdie, bogey in those first 4 holes. And then all of a sudden, I think I'm Jack Nicklaus, and I end up going 8, 9, 10. I mean, strokes per hole, because, boy, I think I'm Jack Nicklaus. So I'm not a very good golfer, admittedly, but sounds really good. Well, how about the mental approach to golf? How did you adapt to that, or how did you work with that?
Yeah, that's a really good like talking point that I feel like a lot of people like, especially like in sports in general, but especially golf. In most sports, like in softball, if something is like not going my way, for example, like I'm pitching and somebody just like hits a home run off of me, like I get very angry, and it's just like my competitive nature. And then all of a sudden, like the next batter will come up, and now I'm throwing faster. I'm throwing with like more spin, like my adrenaline kicks in, and it enhances my performance. In golf, if you like use like anger as like your means of like moving on like to the next holes, it's going to fall apart. Golf is like the only sport that I can think of that you cannot like the anger will not help you get like do better. Like any emotion at all is like you should not be able to like in good golfers, if you watch like a very good golfer, you cannot tell whether they just had like a birdie or if they just like had like 3 over par. And like, you know what I mean? Like you can't tell. And so that's especially when I first started as like a freshman, like a 14-year-old girl, like going through like a lot of changes. It was terrible. I was emotionally up and down all the time. I'd have a bad hole. I'd like fall apart. I remember like almost half my golf matches my freshman year just going into the bathroom and just crying after because I was so frustrated. And then it's just like part of it is just getting older, and like realizing that that's only going to hurt you and not help you. And so like it just just conquering your emotions, just the mental side of golf is over half the battle. Once you can manage your emotions, you're already significantly a better golfer.
That's good. That's really good. And I just think in any sport, pitching, hitting, playing football, self-confidence is so huge. Okay, how do you view yourself? I believe competitive competitive, but make it under control. Friendly competition, competitive. Football competitive. How do you develop a competitiveness?
I feel like you can teach people the proper form, the proper mechanics, like the proper like mindset and strategy, but like I feel like almost like aggression and like competitiveness is something that you almost can't teach somebody. Like I almost feel like you're born with it, which I mean you can kind of like encourage people, but overall I think it's just like a personality trait. Like I was never taught to be competitive, but like I've always have been. And I just feel like it's almost not saying that you can't develop like a little more like aggression, but for like a very non-competitive person, I feel like it'd be hard to make them like compete at a very high level.
Yeah, I think, and that makes self-confidence I mean, let's see, not credibility. Let's see, success can also breed that competitiveness more. It makes you better, I think. Okay, let's talk to kids. Okay, let's talk to kids that have come up to you, parents, and say, okay, our daughter is a 6-year-old. What should she be doing with golf? What are you going to tell them? Now, you don't have that experience, I know that, but what would you tell them by seeing other people?
Well, at first I would say, like, especially like with a 6-year-old, I think the most important thing to start with is for sure just like putting. Like I feel like a lot of people don't understand how like important putting is. Like if you two putt on every hole, which is like what you don't want to do more than two putt,
Right.
that's like 18 strokes on your entire game. Like you use your putter more than any other club. So I think especially that's something that somebody that young could start developing like a feel for putting in the greens. And by the time that they're like older, like at middle school or high school, like their short game will be immensely better than everybody else. And like even I'm guilty of it, and a lot of people are guilty. They just want to go to the driving range and they want to just like hit their driver, and because it's the most fun club to hit, and they don't want to really work on their putting and chipping.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's,
But it just sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, and just like making sure that they're doing like the right mechanics right away. Like for example, just like starting them slow or just starting with half swings to make sure they do that, and then moving on to the full swing and just developing the swing like step by step. And especially, and I think a great way to help kids learn is video, because video doesn't lie, and then you can see right away like, okay, this doesn't look right. And I think that's the best way, is just like to especially develop like, okay, this felt this way and it looks like that. And just like being able to self-evaluate, I think is a very important skill for people to develop very young.
Good. Okay, this goes fast. We've done 18 minutes, almost 19 minutes. Goes fast. Tell me, let's close down with, help me with female sport, high school sports, females, girls, whatever, girls sports in high school. What did we have to do to be better? I remember when just about, I mean, I coached back in the 70s. So I remember that. But what do you see now, Liv? Have you as you look around, what do we have to do to improve the girls' sports?
So I think from like an organization like OHSAA, for example, like I think they're doing a pretty good job lately. Like I haven't really noticed anything from that perspective, but I think it's more of like a local, like a lot of times with for example, like men as like either coaches or athletic directors, for example, when I began golfing, my home course is Lincoln Hills Golf Course, and we weren't for the first 2 years we were not allowed to play on the actual golf course. We had like this like fake course where there was like 4 holes, like they call it the loop, and they like we had to pretty much play it like 3 times and like make a 9-hole course out of it, because like the girls weren't like, we didn't play fast enough, we weren't good enough, but the boys could play on the actual course. And it was like that my freshman and sophomore year. And I just kind of kept like talking to like my athletic director a little bit here and there, like pushing for it. And by the time I was a junior, we were actually allowed to play the real course. And it was just do you just assume that because like we're the girls golf team that like we like can't play the actual course? And that was kind of a frustrating thing I went through like right away. But also just like sportsmanship between girls, I feel like is something that I almost feel like guys are better at. Like I feel like girls especially like I've noticed this like in softball, like you can be more like straight up about things and be a little bit more like outwardly aggressive because that's just the nature of the sport. But with golf, it's more like people will try to like play like mind games with you or like manipulate you and things like that. And it's just like that's not the point of the game. You know what I mean? Like you're just supposed to focus on yourself. But people will try to like be like, oh, like we need to check the rules about that specific, like play the sport like it's meant to be played and not try to like do all these petty things to like get in each other's heads and just play the sport the way it's meant to be played.
Well, that sounds really good. Well, and we've talked about golf and all this stuff, and I must tell people that you finished 23rd, right?
I did.
In the state this year. So that's pretty good, I think. And just the idea of playing there, plus you must have played well at times, because that's pretty good. You know, I think there are 90 competitors maybe, and you were 23rd. Yeah, I think so, something like that. Well, Liv, I've gotten to know you, and I'll have to come in and watch a couple of softball games. Football keeps me busy, but I will have to see a softball game or two, okay? Very much for being on my show. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
That's good. Thank you.